feel like everyone's got World Cup fever at the moment, and I myself am included in that. But in today's video, we are here to dive into some Championship action. We previously discussed each Championship club's highest earner, and in today's video, we're going to be looking at each Championship club's overall wage bill, ranking them from the cheapest to most expensive. And I think this gives us some interesting indications of just how much of a disparity there is in the Championship in terms of the wages being handed out by different clubs. If you do go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. But without any further ado, let's dive into this one. So coming in at the bottom of the pile with the cheapest weekly wage bill, we have Rotherham United coming in with a wage bill of just £104,000 a week for their entire first team squad. Now, all of the numbers that we're going to be discussing in today's video do take into consideration the first team players that are at your club and also any loanees that are at your club, and obviously the disparity there is your club might not be paying all of those wages. But when it comes to Rotherham and how cheap they're actually coming onto today's list, it really goes to show how well they've done to be so competitive this season. In 23rd place, we then have Coventry coming in with a wage bill of just £124k a week. They've done especially well to go ahead and keep that wage bill right down, considering how competitive they've been, this season with that run they were on just before the international break, last season on top of that as well. And generally speaking, how year upon year they've managed to go ahead and build upon their growth. The fact that they've not let the wage bill spiral in that time is really positive. Coming in 22nd place, we then have Blackpool coming in with a weekly wage bill of £135k. I was expecting Blackpool to be amongst the lower end of this table, and in the end that's turned out to be the case. Obviously fairly recently promoted from League One. A lot of the players that are in their squad at the moment are sort of in between those League One and lower Championship end contracts. There's absolutely no debating it. Luton Town are one of the best ranked clubs in the Championship, and it really speaks volumes that they're working on a weekly wage bill of just £139k, considering how competitive they've actually been in the Championship over these last couple of years. Obviously the loss of Nathan Jones, will have to wait and see after this international break how that goes ahead and affects them, but with the appointment of Rob Edwards coming in, very excited to see what he can do with this up and coming squad. Coming in 20th place, we then have Wigan Athletic coming in with a wage bill of £143k a week. Obviously, a lot of the contracts here will have been from League One. Didn't really have all too much of a busy summer transfer window, and so the vast majority of what their players are getting at the moment will be on sort of League One contracts. And I'm sure there were a few bonuses popped in there when they did get promoted to the Championship. We are slowly edging towards that 200k mark, but next up and in 19th place, we have Sunderland coming in with a weekly wage bill of £174k a week. Obviously, similar to what we were just saying then with Wigan, as they have been recently promoted. You'd imagine quite a few of those contracts there will be from League One, with a few incentives that have probably gone up a little bit since they have been promoted. And yeah, still fairly cheap in the vast majority in the standings of the Championship. Coming in 18th place, we then have Huddersfield coming in with a weekly wage bill of £187k a week. Huddersfield have done quite a job really at quite drastically reducing that wage bill since those couple of seasons that they had in the Premier League. It was quite a hangover that they had from those two seasons in terms of how much time it actually took them to go ahead and shift on some of those higher wage earners, but 187k they managed to get the wage bill down to. In 17th place, we then have Millwall coming in with a wage bill of £204k a week. Millwall, when we did our highest earners from each Championship club, Millwall's highest earner was Benik Afobe, and when they actually crunched the numbers, looked into the rest of what that Millwall squad were on, they've done really quite a good job with keeping their average actually quite low in at Millwall. The vast majority of the players there seem to be on under that sort of 10k a week zone. Coming in 16th place, we then have Blackburn Rovers. Actually fairly surprised with how low Blackburn's next weekly wage bill was just 205k, so just that little bit above Millwall. Blackburn have spent a fair bit on transfer fees over the years. Obviously, they have gone ahead and made that money back by some of the big sales that they've gone ahead and completed, but generally speaking, in terms of their wage bill, not handing out massive wage packets like some other Championship clubs have been guilty of. Coming in 15th place, we then have Bristol City coming in with a wage bill of 218k a week. Bristol City, another one of those clubs who seem to have done quite a bit of work with reducing that average over this last season or so, in terms of some of those higher earners that have actually been let go. They're coming in around about the midway point and 15th on this list. Coming in 14th place, we then have my club, Preston North End, coming in with a weekly wage bill of 225k. I'd also say that Preston have been a little bit guilty of handing out some maybe quite silly contracts in the past. I think that this season now has been the first time where we've had a little bit of a reduction actually in our wage bill. You know, since we've been back up in the Championship, it has seemed to have had a steady increase year upon year, but some big earners from, you know, last season off the wage bill, the likes of, you know, Scott Sinclair, Josh Harrop, who was released, and a few of the other sort of deadweights in that squad who weren't really contributing all too much, but still fairly high for a club like Preston, who doesn't, you know, do all too much expenditures on transfers, to be 14th in this list. Coming in 13th place, we have QPR coming in with a weekly wage bill of 228k a week. Obviously, some of these numbers will be influenced by loanees who are at your club and things like that, so QPR not necessarily paying all of this wage bill. Some of that will be from parent clubs and things like that, but quite a few clubs actually are around about the sort of low 200s. This seems to be the sort of average for Championship clubs. The same can be said for Cardiff City as well. They're coming in with a weekly wage bill of 230k, so just that little bit above QPR, two more thousand a week than they're paying out in wages. Cardiff, who had a massive overhaul of their squad in the summer, the biggest earner that they've got on the wage books, who is their player, is currently Callum Robinson. It's so interesting how close these two are, but coming in just above Cardiff, we then have Swansea City coming in with a weekly wage bill of 233k a week, and I'm not going to lie, when you look at the disparity between those squads in terms of some of the quality in there, the fact that Swansea are only paying £3,000 more a week on their weekly wage bill, I think they're getting a lot more value for money, I have to be honest. Into the top 10 we now go. Coming in 10th place, we have Birmingham coming in with a wage bill of 280k, so quite the hike from those numbers we had previously. Now, like we were mentioning before, some of these numbers will be influenced by some of the players that Birmingham do have on loan that they won't be paying all the wages for, but Birmingham still sort of recovering from some of those massive contracts that they have handed out in years gone by. You know, on our top wage earners videos, Harley Dean was right up there for Championship earners, which is absolutely bonkers to me. Coming in 9th place, we're going to have Reading coming in with a weekly wage bill of 291k a week. Now, Reading's numbers, probably more so than a lot of other Championship clubs, are massively influenced by some of the players that they do have in on loan. So Baba Rahman, for example, is reportedly on over 80k a week. Jeff Hendrick, who's on a massive contract as well. Reading won't be paying all of those wages, and the vast majority of that money will be being paid out by their club's parent teams. But still, some pretty big contracts are within that Reading squad. The likes of Liam Moore, Lucas Joao, Ovia Jaria, all on pretty healthy contracts for the Championship. Coming in 8th place, we then have Stoke City coming in with a weekly wage bill of also 291k. It was slightly up on Reading's wage bill, we're talking a couple hundreds, but Stoke, who have done some serious work, to be fair to them, in terms of reducing that average weekly wage and that expenditure that was going out each week. You know, particularly those first couple of seasons in the Championship, they had some absolutely astronomically big wage earners on the wage bill back then, and even with all the cutting that they have done, they are still 8th in the Championship for the wages they're giving out each week. Dwight Gale, their biggest earner as things stand. Coming in 7th place, we then have Middlesbrough coming in with a weekly wage bill of 327k a week. Once again, Middlesbrough's numbers really quite significantly influenced by the loan deal for Zach Stefan especially, who reportedly so at Manchester City is on a contract worth around about £80,000 a week. So his wage alone massively bumps Middlesbrough up on this video. But still, Borough do have plenty of other earners who are on there or thereabouts, that sort of 20k mark, and obviously that keeps them fairly high on this overall ranking. We're really bumping up the numbers now though. Coming in 6th place, we have Hull City with a weekly wage bill of £361k a week. Since Hull have had that takeover, they've seriously splashed out on some big contracts. Now, the funny thing with Hull is that they were actually in profit in terms of their transfer fees for their summer business, despite all the money they actually spent, mostly due to that sale of Keane Lewis Potter. But in terms of how much their wage bill has actually increased since the takeover, it's absolutely flown up. They've now got, I think, around about 8 players who are on or above that 20k mark, which is really quite significant for the Championship. Coming in 5th place, we then have West Brom with an average weekly wage of £382k a week. I expected West Brom to be right up there in today's video, and so this one didn't come as a massive surprise to me, really. They've also got 8 players at the bare minimum who are above that 20k a week mark. Some really quite strange ones in there as well. Kenneth Zahor absolutely robbing a living at West Brom at the moment, but that's on them for going ahead and giving him that lavish contract when he first signed. And it will be no real surprise that the rest of this list is made up by the parachute teams at the moment, and I think that this was the sort of point that I was really getting at, to sort of really see that disparity between what the big clubs in the Championship spend to those teams right down at the bottom of the table, and how hard it is for those to be competitive. In 4th place, we do have Watford, and we really do start to ramp up the average weekly wages from this point onwards. They've got an average weekly wage of £467k a week, obviously, as Watford have done, you know, over these last couple of years, bounce between the Championship and the Premier League. Okay to go ahead and do that if they do get that promotion back up to the Premier League once again, but if that doesn't happen, they will need to seriously reduce this wage bill. And the same thing could be said for Sheffield United as well. Still quite a few Premier League contracts that they've got left over from their days there. They're coming in with an average weekly wage of £470k a week. It really is just a different stratosphere that some of these clubs are operating in, you know, especially if you compare it to those bottom 3 on the table right now in terms of the average weekly wages that are being given out. So yeah, 470k goes out of Sheffield United each week on wages. We are continuing the hike for 2nd place. We then have Burnley coming in with a wage bill of £494,000 a week. Burnley, who were actually quite significantly in profit in terms of the transfer dealings that they did do in the summer, in terms of the players that went out, how they went ahead and rebuilt that squad really excellently in terms of their overall transfer business. But when you compare that wage bill to, you know, the rest of the Championship here, it really is night and day, and speaks to the quality they've got in that squad at the moment, and the quality that they can attract when obviously those big wages are afforded. But plenty of contracts from the Premier League obviously are included in those numbers, and some loanees as well. But with by far and away the biggest weekly wage bill in the Championship, we have Norwich City, who absolutely blow everyone else out of the water with a weekly wage bill of £628k a week. That's like 6 times more than what Rotherham are working on in terms of a weekly wage bill. Norwich have, I think, a record number of people in the Championship who are over that 20k a week mark. 17 players within that Norwich squad are earning more than £20,000 a week, according to Salary Sport, which is absolutely obscene. You know, some clubs could only dream of offering one player that sort of money, but Timu Pukki is coming in as their highest earner, is the highest earner actually in the Championship if you went ahead and watched that video. And the disparity of the numbers in here, I mean, I find this so interesting. But guys, there we have it. As you can see to the side of me, that is what each Championship club is spending on wages every single week. Now, as I mentioned at the start of the video, some of these numbers will be influenced by loanees that you do have at your club, who your club isn't necessarily paying all of those fees, but it really does show a disparity, you know, in the numbers between some of these teams, doesn't it? That will go ahead and wrap it up for today's video though, guys. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like and do stick around and subscribe for some regular Championship content. But for that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.